Have you ever made a time capsule? They can be fun to look back on, helping you relive lost memories and reminisce. You may not have made one since you were a kid, but what if I told you you probably have one in your home right now that's been sitting unthought of, potentially for years? Video game save files. Small chunks of data stored in a console or a memory card save more than just your progress in a game. They save pieces of who you are, sitting untouched, unchanged since they were last booted up, sometimes years before. Animal Crossing is a game series that handles save files in a unique way. You can have up to 4 different players with their own individual save, but all 4 of them will be living in the same town, with the same layout, and the same characters to interact with. This feature of Animal Crossing, it naturally builds connections, not just with the game, but with the people that you share it with. It creates unexpectedly heartwarming moments, like a villager mentioning your mom in conversation, or picking out a gift to send with a letter you wrote to your sister. Even in a disjointed family growing up, this was one of the only things that brought some of us together. However, this means that if you want to experience the game from the beginning again, and like most people you only have one console, that means deleting your town. Animal Crossing practically begs you not to do this, making you feel like you're ending the lives of every villager you've spent months, years manipulating into a false sense of friendship, only to betray their trust on a whim in a merciless act of omnipotent power. And they're right to. You're gonna kill Bob? That's your ride or die. And you chose die. And yet, a few years ago, my wife wanted to do the unthinkable. I was pretty excited to introduce her to the series in 2020 with New Horizons, and through COVID, we spent an unholy number of hours playing this game. But a couple years in, I was over the game, having been disappointed by it compared to other games in the series, and my wife had this vision of an ultra-customized, perfectly handcrafted town like she'd seen online. It would be easier to just start from scratch and build it from the ground up. I didn't see myself playing the game regularly again, so I said, sure, go ahead. Do your thing, girl. But as time went on, I wished we hadn't deleted that save file that we spent hundreds of hours in. Not because that beautifully customized town never came to be, and definitely not out of nostalgia for COVID. But it's because of the value that video game save files have as modern-day time capsules. Maybe you made one in school, or maybe your parents put one together with you. A time capsule is a box of objects, notes, pictures, trinkets, buried to capture a moment in time. You may not know it, but that game you're playing right now, in 5, 10, 15 years, will be a snapshot of this time in your life, buried in a save file, waiting to remind you of who you were. That Minecraft world that you hop on with your friends every night, at some point will hold fond memories of good times spent with friends for you to reminisce on. And Minecraft is probably the game that makes for the best time capsules, a game all about self-expression, where every piece of ground you walk on and every space of air around you can be handcrafted to your heart's desire. Every house you build, mine you dig, sign you write, and dog you name is a reflection of you. And this makes going back to your old world very nostalgic. Some of my favorite gaming memories were in my first ever Minecraft world. A friend of mine had introduced me to the game, and we played together on that world. I remember building a giant battle dome out of bedrock that could send any spawn egg from a control room above down to the floor below. We'd take turns testing our PvP skills by putting each other through hordes of mobs. It was my first ever experience gaming online, and I'll never forget it. But that world was being run on a server hosting website, and when it came time to renew my membership, I was grounded. I tried explaining the situation, how this world was really important to me, but I wasn't allowed to pay it. My server membership expired, and my world was deleted with it. I wish I could have saved that world, to be able to preserve those memories in more detail, but I couldn't get it back, so that one will have to exist in memory. But the special thing about video games is, if you're proactive about preserving your save files, those memories don't have to exist exclusively in your mind. When I go back to my childhood Animal Crossing towns, it's like stepping into a frozen moment in time. I can see my wardrobe, my art projects, my decorating choices. I can see what my sister's house looked like the last day she played. Villagers call me by nicknames I gave them when I was 10. And in my inventory are letters from my mom, written years ago. A lot of my life and who I used to be were captured in this game. And I'll never change or erase it, because I want it to stay just as it was, a snapshot of the time I left it. Today the world around me is different. The people I know are different. My childhood home is different. I'm different. But this place always stays exactly the same. There's something comforting about it, knowing that everything is just the same as I left it. Bob and Chow are still frenemies. Gruff the goat is still the same grumpy old man with a good heart he doesn't like to show. And my mom and sister will always be just upstairs, taking a peaceful nap. It's fascinating how you can rediscover details about your past just by looking at the way a game was played, but it's true. Every few years when I sit down to revisit these towns, there's always something new that I notice that gives me some extra context into my childhood. And that's surprising to me, but probably makes more sense when I consider how much time I spent playing it back then. You may have at one point in your life spent hundreds of hours in digital spaces like this one, many of which have some aspect of creativity or self-expression that gives you a window to the past. And while revisiting them, you may come across a thought, a feeling that hasn't hit you in a long time, one that makes you think, those were the simpler times. Ah, the good old days, right? Burying my head in the DS on drives home, killing the Elite Four with my level 70 Infernate. And the rest of the team, of course. Asking my mom if I can stay over at my friend's for a second night so we can stay up playing Smash. Day after day on summer break, getting carried away by the soothing underwater exploration of endless ocean. Reminiscing about the good old days can feel comforting in the moment, but it can also be a trap if we're not careful. Sure, I remember burying my head in my DS, but I also remember why. Because it was the only way to escape the shouting in the front seat. Spending that second night at a friend's house was so exciting, but part of that was relief from the fear of going back home where nothing felt safe. And I looked to peaceful games like Endless Ocean so much because the calm gameplay transported me to a calmer, more peaceful place that helped ease the anxiety of knowing that later in the day, the calm would disappear and the chaos at home would return. Nostalgia is powerful, but it doesn't always tell the full story. I think when you get older and you have bills to pay, more things you're responsible for, or even just go through the emotional and social toll of getting older, you can miss times in your past when maybe less was expected of you, and you had more time to spare on the simpler things in life, like video games. I've definitely been guilty of falling into a sort of nostalgia trap. Sometimes we can tend to think of our past through rose-colored glasses, meaning we can look at things through a filter that makes things look nicer than they really are. Remembering meaningful moments, but not looking at our past as a whole. The problem arises when we start to compare that rose-tinted view of the past to our present, making life now feel dull by comparison. I think it's good to be aware of this danger, but it doesn't mean that there isn't anything positive about looking back on these experiences we had playing games in the past. Memories are valuable, and even ones made in digital spaces can hold a lot of meaning and be very special to look back on. I hold on to my memories of gaming and look back on them fondly because they were the glimpse of light in an otherwise very dark part of my life. I think it's hard to explain to someone who's never had gaming as a hobby why it means so much to those who do. I think it's perceived by many to be an isolating activity, a mindless waste of time, spending hours turning your brain off when there's other things you should be doing. And while there is a balance that needs to be struck with any hobby, gaming is by no means a passive activity. It's unique in that it lets you interact and create in a way that other entertainment doesn't. And I believe it deserves the same respect and understanding that any other hobby gets. Some hobbies may be mindless, but that's not what video games are for most people. For many people, video games are a way to connect with others, As someone who was very socially behind as a kid, video games were how I connected with people. It wasn't that I didn't want to connect in other ways, but I didn't know how. I never learned how. I didn't know how to carry a conversation, get people to like me, or even how to look people in the eye. But gaming was the perfect conduit for communication for me. You don't have to be good at carrying a conversation when you're playing Mario Kart. You don't need to know exactly the next thing you're supposed to say. You can simply talk about why you like the track that you're on, and trash talk the guy you just clobbered with a red shell. You don't have to be worried about eye contact, because you're both focused on the game in front of you. And when you both have a game in front of you, you already have one thing in common: that shared experience. I treasure my memories of time spent with the few friends I had during weekend sleepovers circled around Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart. Rare times where I felt at peace and like I could really just be myself. I think about what kids have gone through in recent years and the huge increase of mental health struggles since COVID, and I can't imagine how hard connecting with people would be for me if I had grown up during a global pandemic. So I was very curious to hear the perspective of someone who did. I reached out to a family friend who asked to be referred to as Anonymous Tan Man. He was in 4th grade at the beginning of COVID and dealt with social anxiety prior to the lockdown. He said this: "I deal with social anxiety in almost every social situation I'm in. I'm usually afraid of being judged by others because I naturally believe that everyone is judging me and making fun of me in any way possible. I'm also terrified of embarrassing myself, which unfortunately stops me from doing things I know I might like." He said during COVID that fear of embarrassment continued through the use of Zoom, that having his camera on gave him that fear of being judged. But what he said about gaming really got me thinking about how big of an impact it can have on people. He said, "Gaming was a lifesaver for me. I already loved video games in the first place, but then it started to help me in amazing ways. I got to play games I loved with friends and family even though we were separated, and I didn't have to have that fear of being embarrassed or judged by others. I could be myself through video games, and I don't know how I would have lasted through COVID without them." Connecting through games online became practically the only option for socialization during COVID for many kids and teens stuck at home at a time when sleepovers and hangouts should have been the norm. Especially for those who have trouble in social situations, gaming was and continues to be an incredibly valuable tool. When I asked how gaming continues to help him beyond COVID, my anonymous friend shared some thoughts that felt like I could have said them myself. "Gaming is such an amazing thing to do regularly because it helps me to somewhat be more comfortable with talking to people. Because if I'm playing games, I'm having a fun time, and it distracts me so I don't have to focus on the social anxiety I'm normally dwelling on and panicking about. With games, I can just relax and have a fun time with friends and family, and I can be at peace of mind, away from that social anxiety." With these benefits being so strongly felt by so many, it's a shame that some people continue to criticize and push back against gaming, viewing it as a socially isolating activity by nature. Because it's true that gaming is often a single-player activity, but while people who are lonely may gravitate towards gaming as a means of coping, clinical research has shown that there is no strong evidence that video games directly cause loneliness. And for those who have an exceptionally hard time making friends, it can be a real benefit, especially with the opportunity to connect with others through the games they enjoy. But beyond just helping build connections, there are others that may have a more serious reason to spend so much time in virtual worlds. The sad reality is that many kids are in dysfunctional households, are mistreated or neglected, or are trapped in all sorts of other bad situations that they are not equipped to handle. And when you're facing a serious problem like this, it's likely that you don't have a physical place or person that you can turn to feel safe. It's an overwhelming feeling. For many, video games are an escape from that. Immersing yourself in a game is sometimes the only option you have to escape from chaotic and scary situations in your life that you can't control. And this is especially true for kids. No other place to go, no means of transportation to get there, and oftentimes no family to rely on. Plus, for some, any effort to reach out for help is a risk that things will get worse. When there is no one and nowhere in the real world to escape to, video games can help you escape mentally, to help you feel okay just for the moment. Because here, no one is going to get mad at you. There's no financial pressure, no real danger or anxiety, no bullies or overbearing managers or bad parents. Here, the only thing you need to worry about is feeding your cows, finding a missing slice of cake, or tracking down a rusty gear. For a moment, you're in another world, where you have a sense of control, where the stakes aren't so high, and where your real-life problems can fade from thought. For many, video games are more than an escape. They're lifelines that through difficult times give moments of peace and joy to hold on to. And I think the fact that these virtual spaces are often the only safe space a child has presents the opportunity for a unique form of healing once you get older and can look back on that time that goes further than just escaping in the moment. When you experience trauma as a kid, you almost have to grow up faster. The pressures of life have already crept in, and you have to do the mental gymnastics of an adult without the mental framework to know how to handle it. You may feel like you missed out on your childhood entirely, or you may feel stuck, never able to move past the mental block that stemmed from that trauma. And when coping with this, I feel that nostalgia can actually serve a greater purpose. Nostalgia isn't inherently bad. It's okay to cherish the good parts of the past while acknowledging the bad, to appreciate the light in an otherwise dark picture. And in times when it's hard to make peace with what you've been through, video games can be a safe starting point for approaching painful aspects of your past. So I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. I know that we haven't in a while, and that's my fault. But I think you know better than anybody that ignoring things doesn't make them better. And I want you to know that I saw what happened. I saw what they did to you. And I know that the yelling and the fighting, it was all very scary. And my reaction was to hide you. I didn't know what else to do at that time. That was my automatic reaction. And I just want you to know that I'm really sorry that all of that happened to you. And I don't bring all this up just to open up old wounds. I bring it up because I still see that instinct in you. And I want you to know that you don't have to hide anymore. There are people here now that love you, that care about you, and they're not going to hurt you the way that they did. I just want you to know that everything's going to be okay now. Here, you should play for a bit. You can't go back and live it again. You can't redo it knowing everything that you know now. Those places may be gone, those people out of your life, and those situations dealt with however well you could muster up at the time. But there is one place where you can be transported back there, to visit your past, and try your best to reconcile with it. Video games can give you the opportunity to revisit your past in a safe setting, allowing you to work towards coming to terms with your traumatic experiences. Because despite what happened, this space was always safe. And maybe, just maybe, with work and the proper healing, your real space now can become safe too. Sometimes all you have left of a person or a place, a time in your life, or even a piece of yourself are the memories in your head that fade with time, and pixels on a screen, saved to a memory card, arranged exactly as they were when you last left them. And hopefully those pixels make you smile rather than cry, as you remember the fun moments that make gaming special to you. Along with this video, I'm going to be making a YouTube time capsule. And to do that, I want to hear from you. To participate in the time capsule, simply leave a comment on this video. Tell me something that's unique about your time in life right now. What challenges are you facing? And through those challenges, what has gaming meant to you? Or just say whatever else you want to say. In 1 month, I'm going to shoot a video where I respond to every single comment that I get on this video until then. I'll edit the video and upload it when I can, and I'm going to schedule it to be posted 5 years from the cutoff date. So 5 years and 1 month from when this video is posted. I don't know if my channel will get bigger or how many comments this thing will get. I'm going to keep trying to make entertaining content for you guys. But whatever the case, time capsules are really interesting to look back on. And I think it'll be cool to look back on where this channel is now and what's going on in life for some of you early subscribers. If you want to send a picture of something that you might normally include in a time capsule, or if you're just nervous about leaving a public comment, feel free to send your message via email, as long as you're okay with it appearing in the time capsule video in 5 years. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.